Bound for Burma, Chapter 2. 9-year-old Adoniram Judson smiled with relief as he rounded the big elm tree opposite the church and realized that, for once, his little sister Abigail had not followed him. She was probably playing with their baby sister Mary. As he walked along the dusty street, Adoniram felt the thick envelope in his pants pocket. He was on a secret mission, a mission that he had hoped would bring him fame. When he reached the general store, he stopped at the top of the stairs to make sure that, other than the postmaster, no one from his father's congregation was inside. Once confident the coast was clear, Adoniram entered the store and walked to the back where the post office was located and placed the envelope on the counter. "I would like to mail this to Boston, sir," he said politely. "Boston, eh? And what would a young man like you be wanting with someone in Boston?" quizzed the postmaster, after reading the address on the envelope. After reading the address on the envelope, he added with a chuckle, "Newspaper editor, is it? Has something been happening around Wenham that I should know about?" Adoniram felt himself blushing. He had not imagined he would have to explain himself to the postmaster. Just then the door opened and several men entered the store. To Adoniram's relief, the postmaster took his attention off him. "I'll be right with you," he said to the men. Then, placing the letter back on the counter, he smiled at Adoniram. "It's as good as sent, young man. Now be sure and give my regards to your father. He preached a mighty fine sermon last Sunday." Adoniram nodded politely and headed out the door into the early fall air. Later that day, as the Judson family sat down at the table for dinner, Adoniram caught a glimpse of something white in his father's hand. It was the letter he had mailed 2 hours before. "Does this belong to you?" his father asked in a serious tone. Yes, sir," stammered Adoniram. "What's it about? And why do you feel the need to be so secretive about it?" his father questioned. It's the answer to the weekly enigma. You know, the puzzle that's in the newspaper each week. I solved it and was sending in the answer. I didn't think you'd believe that I solved it, and if so, then you wouldn't let me send it in." "But those puzzles are for adults, not 9-year-old boys," said his father. "Go get me the newspaper." Adoniram scurried away at his father's request to the room that he shared with his younger brother Elnathan to retrieve the paper. He grabbed it from his bed and returned to the kitchen. "Here it is, sir," he said, handing the newspaper to his father. Mr. Judson read the puzzle and then compared it to his 9-year-old son's answer. After what seemed like an eternity, he finally said, "I do believe you've got it." The next day, when he arrived home from school, his father called to him, "Adoniram, come here a moment." The boy walked into the living room where his father was seated in his brown leather wing-back chair beside the fire. "I have something for you," his father said. Adoniram stared in astonishment as his father offered him a book. "It's a book of puzzles. When you finish it, I'll buy you a more difficult one." Adoniram took the book, unable to think of what to say. "You are a very smart boy," continued his father. "Your mother and I realized that when you learned to read at just 3 years old. Train your mind, son, and you will be a great man someday." "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir," stammered Adoniram, hardly able to take in such praise from his father. His father and mother weren't the only ones to recognize his intelligence either. At school, the other students had nicknamed him Virgil because of the speed with which he could read and write Greek and Latin. Mathematics came so easy for him that he had all the answers figured out before his teacher had finished explaining the lesson. Despite this, his father's words had surprised him. Did he, Adoniram Judson, have what it took to be a great man? But then, what was a great man? Was it a preacher like his father, or a teacher like those at school, or a sea captain like his grandfather. Adoniram simply did not know. Encouraged by his problem-solving ability, the Judsons enrolled Adoniram in a naval navigation school in nearby Salem, Massachusetts. He loved being in Salem, which was the richest town in New England. When his father came to visit, they walked together all over the wharf. The smell of unknown spices filled the air as exotic cargo from far-off ports in China and Europe was unloaded. 3 weeks after Adoniram began attending the new school, however, disaster struck the Judson family. 6-month-old Mary died. She had been sick for several weeks and eventually got so weak that she just stopped breathing. All of the Judson children were saddened by her death, but none more than Adoniram. He questioned why God would allow such a horrible thing to happen, yet he was afraid to discuss his concerns with his father. His doubts, left unspoken, grew, and soon he secretly wanted nothing more to do with the God his father preached about so passionately in church on Sunday mornings. No sooner had Mary been buried than Judson's father became ill too. In spite of attempts at treatment, Mr. Judson continued to decline. When there was no way he could fulfill all his duties as pastor, he resigned from his position in the church and moved the family to Braintree, several miles south of Boston. In 1797, John Adams, a farmer and lawyer from Braintree, was elected President of the United States. Adoniram and his father often walked past the farm where John Adams had grown up. As they did so, the conversation was always the same. If John Adams could make something great of himself, so could Adoniram Judson. While in Braintree, Abigail Judson, Adoniram's mother, determined to scrape together enough money to keep their 3 children in school while her husband slowly improved. After 2 years, the newly established Third Congregational Church of Plymouth, Massachusetts, offered Mr. Judson the pastorate of the church, and the family moved once again. 14-year-old Adoniram loved Plymouth. With its bustling population of 35,000 people, he had access to more ideas and information than ever before. However, when they'd been there only a few months, Adoniram himself became very ill. For a full year, Adoniram was unable to go to school. When he did recover, he was so determined to catch up on all the schoolwork he had missed, he threw himself into his studies. In fact, he worked so hard that he not only caught up on the year he had missed, but completed his next year's work too and was pronounced ready to go on to college. Adoniram's father was a graduate of Yale University, but since New Haven, Connecticut was a long way from Plymouth, he looked for a college closer to home for his eldest son to attend. Harvard University was only 50 miles to the north, but Adoniram's father was not impressed with the religious education given there. Though started as a college to train ministers, by 1803 it had become evident that Harvard's professors did not truly believe the Bible. This is how it was decided that Adoniram should attend Rhode Island College in Providence, 50 miles to the south. On August 15, 1804, just 6 days after his 16th birthday, Adoniram and his father set off by stagecoach. He carried with him a spare set of clothes and his books, all stuffed into the same old leather duffel bag his father had used when he went to college. As they made the journey south, questions swirled through Adoniram's mind. What would it be like to be away from his family? He had scooped up the academic prizes in his local school, but how would his intellect compare with students in a college such as this? Of greater concern to his father was the question, what kind of man would he be when, after 4 years of study, he passed back out through the gates with his degree in hand?